Hey gang, Jane back today with the third video in my series of crochet tutorials on simple little shapes. In our first tutorial we covered the square, and in our second tutorial we covered the hexagon. Today's shape is going to be the octagon. This series is a great one for learning how to create different shapes from the same center circle piece. I'll show you the simple calculations to transform your center into the most common granny shapes. This is such a great stash busting idea and gives you fun and simple ways to use up lots of color and make beautiful home decor and more. This crochet tutorial series on simple little shapes will work through each shape, creating it from the very same centerpiece to show you how one circle can become many shapes. Then you can use the principles of this method to create new shapes out of any of your granny squares. As we explore each shape in this series, I'll share straightforward methods for calculating the stitches needed for each side. This technique will empower you to adapt any crochet shape with ease. Hey, if you haven't already, be sure you hit that subscribe button, and if you're enjoying these tutorials, please like and share them with your friends. That helps me to keep this free content coming and to help inspire more people to get creative. Today we'll be focusing on the octagon. Before we start crocheting this new shape, let's take a moment to review all the shapes that are in this series. We start with a center circle. Our example will have 24 stitches, which we achieve in 2 rounds. With this shape, we can turn it into a larger circle, or we can work other shapes by working corners into the next round. The most common shapes used for granny squares are the square with 4 corners and 4 edges, the hexagon with 6 corners and 6 edges, and the octagon with 8 corners and 8 edges. First, we covered the square, then we covered the hexagon, and this week, we're going to cover the octagon. We start with the basic circle of 2 rounds. It's the same circle we've been using for both the square and the hexagon. It's made up of 1 round of 12 double crochet and then a second round of 2 single crochet per stitch, which will give you a total of 24 stitches by the end of round 2. If you'd like to walk through these 2 rounds with me, you can check that out in the first video of this series that I did on the square. After you have your center complete, then we'll move on to round 3. Which is the one where we'll be shaping our octagon. I'll put the instructions for the first 2 rounds up on the screen here, and you can pause the video and complete the center circle, or feel free to check out my first video and we can work through it together. Now that you have your center circle complete, you should have 24 stitches. Let's do some simple number calculating. An octagon has 8 corners, so to find the number of stitches per edge, we start by subtracting the number of stitches for the corners, which is 8, from our total stitches in round 2, which is 24. We end up with 16 remaining stitches. Now we divide this number, 16, by the number of edges, which is 8, and we now have 2 stitches per edge. So now our octagon will use 1 stitch for each of the 8 corners and 2 stitches for each of the 8 edges. Let's see what this will look like on a real crocheted piece. You can see 2 stitches are used to create each edge, and 1 corner stitch will be used to create the corners for the next round. My corners are always made by working 2 stitches with a chain stitch to turn the corner, and in this case, I use double crochet, chain 2, double crochet in the 1 corner stitch. Similar to the hexagon, because there are so many corners, a chain 2 in the corners will suffice to give you a nice crisp corner. Now let's get into round 3 of our shape that makes it into an octagon. We start this one with a double crochet just like the others. Insert into any one of the stitches and complete your double crochet. And this will be the last half of this last corner. So all we want here are 2 double crochets per edge. So we're going to go in and do a double crochet in the next stitch, and then a double crochet in the next stitch. So it's only 2 double crochets for the edge, and this post is part of our corner. Now we're ready for our next corner. So the corners come up quick because there's 8 of them. So we do a double crochet in the next stitch, chain 2, because it's not a sharp corner, and a double crochet in the same stitch. That's your corner. And that's it. We're going to do that 8 times around this circle. So again, we're going to do a double crochet in the next stitch and a double crochet in the next stitch. So 2 double crochets make the edge, and then your corner is double crochet, chain 2, double crochet in the same stitch. So you're only working over 3 of the stitches as your repeat, but you're creating this extra stitch at the corner. So 1 more edge, 2 double crochet in each of the next 2 stitches. Each stitch gets 1 double crochet. Then we do our corner. Double crochet, chain 2, double crochet. So here we have 3 edges finished and 3 corners. You're going to keep working an edge of 2 double crochet, 1 in each stitch, and then a corner of double crochet, chain 2, double crochet in the same stitch. Keep working that way all the way around. You'll end with the edge double crochets, which is the 2 double crochets, and we will complete our last corner together. So here we are at the end. We finished our last edge with the 2 double crochets, 1 in each stitch, and we've reached our last half of our corner. We're going to work a double crochet into the same stitch that we joined into, chain 2, and then slip stitch in the top of the first double crochet and pull it through. And I've already cut my yarn, so there we are. Now in this case, I cut this end short, but really I should have left it much longer so I could use it to sew my projects together. Using your ends to sew pieces together means less ends to darn in at the end. So don't cut those ends short. Leave them nice and long and use them to sew things together. Now, unlike the hexagon shape and the square shape that can both be joined to each other directly to create larger projects, the octagon has a gap, and it's the exact shape of a square. However, it has to be a smaller square than the octagon itself, and it needs to have the same number of edge stitches as the octagon to fill in this space. So I solved this by working a simple 1 round piece and just add 4 corners, making sure my number of stitches match what's needed to sew it in place. Let's look at our octagon again. It has 2 edge stitches and a corner stitch that is a double crochet, chain 2, double crochet. This works out to 4 stitches per edge on its last round. This includes the corner double crochet stitches. So each of my small square center pieces need to match these 4 stitches per edge as well. If I work out 4 edges times 4 stitches, then I get 16 stitches total, and I will add a chain 2 corner after every 4 stitches. This will let me match up the edges. I can sew them right together, stitch for stitch. All right, let's get to making the little square. So you can either work this into a magic ring or into a chain 4 foundation ring, whichever works best for you. Once again, I'm going to do my magic ring. Now, I showed you this technique in more detail in the first video of this series, so you can check that out there. And I'm going to chain 3 to represent our first double crochet. So this little square is only going to be 1 round, and it's going to have 16 stitches total worked into this ring because we need 4 for each side. This includes the stitches in the corners. So again, it's going to look just like the octagon. It's going to have 2 edge stitches and then 1 for each corner on that side. So if this one counts as our first one, we need 4 total before we turn a corner. So let's do 4 double crochet into this magic ring, and this will be our first side of our square. Then we will do a chain 2. Let's keep it simple and not make them too sharp because we got a lot going on in this ring. Now I want to do 4 more double crochet. If you rather have more sharp corners but it creates bigger space, you can do a chain 3. But see how the chain 2, it works fine because it's such a small square. So we have 4 more double crochet and another corner, which is a chain 2. Everything's going into this big center ring. So 4 more double crochets. That's 3, and this is 4. Moving a little faster here because they're just double crochet stitches. And a chain 2. 4 more double crochet will be our last edge of our square because we only need 4 edges. And now I've reached my last corner. I have enough double crochets, so all I need to do now is chain 2 and join in this first stitch, which is really joining in the 3rd chain. slip stitching it. And now to make the square work, I have to pull up this end. So I just pull it in until it feels comfortable. And again with this final end, I will make sure I cut it long so I can use it to sew this square into the space between my octagons. If I can use a finished end for sewing pieces together, then it serves another purpose and it means less ends to darn in at the end. Now you just line the square up in the middle of your octagons just like a puzzle piece and sew it stitch for stitch all the way around. And that wraps up our third shape. Each of these little shapes in these tutorials uses less than 4 grams of yarn and they can be whipped up in no time. Keep an eye on my Instagram and my YouTube community channel where I'll be sharing photos of inspirational projects made with these quick and easy shapes. If you enjoyed this tutorial, please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to my channel so you won't miss any of my upcoming tutorials. Thanks for joining me today and I'll see you next time.